welcome back to my channel. First of all, I have to say thank you so much to all the love on my last video, 9,000 views. Well, at the time I had like maybe less than 200 subscribers and now I'm almost at 1,000, which is amazing. I'm so grateful. And I'm so happy that everyone enjoyed that video. I took a lot of time to edit that video. I took a lot of time to gather my thoughts and research what I wanted to say. And I just, appreciate all of the love. I mean, 9,000 views is so much, especially because I think now I'm almost at 1,000. So exciting. YouTube was something that was so foreign to me because I really didn't watch YouTube. Honestly, I think I hadn't watched YouTube channels like religiously since I was maybe like 10 years old. Like I used to watch like Bethany Moda and like Get by Mandy 24, but that was really it. That was really the extent of my YouTube days. Anyway, it means a lot and I'm very appreciative of all the love. Okay, let me gather my thoughts. The last 2 months in fashion have felt so strange to me. Number one, I've been working so much since the very beginning of the year. That has been amazing. It took a really long time for me to push out that last video because I was working a lot too. For weeks, I feel like I haven't had like a break. And so this is kind of like my first week where I have a break and I'm really excited because I've been really trying to gather my thoughts and verbalize kind of some of my concepts and ideas that I've been feeling. And let me go to my notes. By the way, every video I make, I write down paragraphs and paragraphs in my notes app. So I was on a plane. I was going back to LA last week and I was going through some of the comments and some of the people were like, what are we thinking about X, Y, and Z? And just some of the things that people are commenting on my other channel for TikTok. And so I was like, what is all of this? Like New York Fashion Week was one thing. Then it was all the other fashion weeks and it was London Fashion Week, which was amazing. Now we're wrapping up Paris Fashion Week by the time I'm filming this. Probably by the time I post it will be done. But I think like in years past, in seasons past, I've been really good about like watching everything and like having really strong opinions because I felt like things were new. And I talked about this in my last video. When people were asking what we were going to see in 2025, I was like, I don't know. But part of that is because I've been so bored with fashion. When I was looking at the runways, I was like, oh my gosh, I have nothing to say. Like, what is my video going to be about? Finally, something really caught my eye. But I feel like so many designers and so many collections, so many brands are just reiterating themselves and copying. Part of it is because a lot of the creative directors are switching around right now, but it's also not because of that. It's mainly because fashion has stepped away from the artistic side of it. I think it's trying really hard to like battle that, and they're trying to come back and be creative and be artistic and be theatrical again. But for so long, and we're still seeing it now with a lot of these major brands, everything is done and made and constructed and released for the consumer. It's interesting because I think they're just a little bit out of touch. It feels like there's a disconnect between the brands and the consumer. They're gearing everything for the consumer, which, in a business model, that's right. That's what you want to do. But it feels so out of touch because it doesn't feel like that's what the consumer wants. There seems to be some sort of disconnect between their target audience of consumers and the brands. Like the brands are not getting what the consumers want anymore. And I don't know if maybe it's the demographic that they're going for with these collections or what it is, but it just doesn't feel unique. It doesn't feel inspiring. A lot of these collections feel very redundant, like it's copy and paste. And like I said, it partially has to do with so many of the creative directors switching and swapping, but at the same time, it doesn't have anything to do with that. I don't know. It just feels a little off, I guess I would say. One of the videos I talked about in the last season, it was shortly before I decided to make a YouTube. I made a video talking about Prada Spring Summer 25. And I said that fashion, and I talked about it in the last video, fashion often holds a mirror up to society. Like in any art form, it's reflecting political, social, economic themes and concepts and problems, whatever it may be, back to the audience, right? In theater, we say we hold a mirror up to society. I think in art in general often does that. And fashion right now is reflecting recession, right? I talked about how Prada Spring Summer 25 was a perfect example telling everyone that we are in a recession. Why? Because it's talking about the algorithm and how the algorithm controls us and how it impacts what we want and how we consume and how we interact. Prada Spring Summer 25 was an indicator that we were in a recession. Not necessarily because it was harping on the algorithm, but because it was so chaotic and so wild that it felt similar to kind of like how pop is coming back. It was this form of escapism, and indicators of a recession often are pop culture booming and becoming at the forefront of everything, in society, pop music coming back, having a resurgence, comedies, specifically like rom-coms coming back in the film industry. And if you look at the movies that are being released right now, they're all, not all of them, but a lot of them are comedic and have comedic energy to them. So this idea of creating something that is a form of escapism for the viewer, for the audience, for the consumer, right? So take that in mind. So I talked about that in the video of Prada Spring Summer 25, and I was using it as this way to talk about the way fashion is moving, and it has to go hand in hand with everything that was going on, all the fashion trends that are repeating itself that I talked about in my last video. Why? Because, well, during that time there was the recession, right? The house market had crashed in 2008. If you look at 2008 until about 2010, 2011, 12, 13, 14, that was like the time when people were just getting out of being so affected by the house market crashing. So what does that have to do with fashion? Well, people wanted a feeling of escapism. That was why pop music was at an all-time high during that time period, and also why brands were, releasing these collections that were very, very unique and spunky, and it was different. And there was this form of escapism. We also see social media take off like never before, right? Instagram was created during that time period. We saw all of these different milestones in culture, not just pop culture, but culture in general, be impacted because of what was going on politically, socially, and economically. And all of that was reflective in the fashion, in the art that was being made, and it also is doing that now. And Prada Spring Summer 25, also Versace Spring Summer 25, and I talked about Bottega as well, like a couple different designers during that last season. These are all indicators of where we are at economically and socially. And of course, it's all intertwining, right, politically. Recession, fashion, all that in mind, I'm looking at this season's runways and I'm like, wait, everyone loved Prada, because why wouldn't you? But it felt very, very repetitive this season. Gucci released a collection that emulated Miu Miu and Prada, which is no surprise here. There was a lot of childlike mix and match of textures, colors, patterns, and the juxtaposition of silhouettes and structures. It's been mimicked in a lot of the collections this season. Also, we saw in Marni. So Marni and Gucci. For Marni, it feels like it was grounded in what the brand is. Like the brand identity of Marni, having that childlike flair in the mix and match and in the bright colors and patterns doesn't feel far off. But for Gucci, it did. And hear me out. Just because you have a collection for a brand that has the embossed logo on it or a monogram on it does not make it true to the brand's identity. So looking at Gucci, I said, well, this feels very Prada and this feels very Miu Miu, because Miu Miu and Prada have such strong brand identities that they have been able to evolve with their audience and with the consumer, and they never fail and stray from that identity. Do they go outside of the box with some things? Yes, but it all has one through line with the brand identity. Gucci has not felt like it's had a brand identity in several seasons. That is partly because of Michele leaving. When Michele was at Gucci, the brand identity was so strong and you knew exactly what you were going to get. Was it beautiful and were the collections unique in everything? Yes, of course. But that identity was very grounded in Michele's vision. Now it feels lost. Gucci feels like it's so out of touch that it's like has no idea what it's doing, and it's very, very prevalent in its campaigns, in its recent seasons. If you're emulating an idea or a concept or structure and designs that are true to a different brand that do not resonate with your brand identity, and you're just throwing a logo on it or a monogram, it doesn't make it your brand identity. So just because this childlike recession fashion is booming right now and people loved it, doesn't mean that you need to make it as a brand. And that is what I gathered from Gucci. I was just like, this feels wrong. I loved Burberry, but I've loved Burberry for a while. I think Burberry has done a wonderful job at re-energizing the brand and making it resonate with the youth, because everyone is all about the youth right now. But I think Burberry has been doing a very good job at doing that. And I talked about Burberry in the last season because they had so many military type of jackets, and I was like, you guys, I told you. So Burberry has been strong for a couple couple seasons, I've really liked some of their stuff. Actually, for like 2 years or a year, I've really liked their stuff. Yeah. Same with Ferragamo. I love, love, love everything that Ferragamo has put out and all of the collections that he's put out. So it's been great. If you've been following me and you remember my TikToks about, might have been 5 seasons ago, I mentioned fringe being on the runways and how I thought it was interesting. But it kind of goes into this idea of like boho coming back, which is boho needs to be done in a way that's like, at least for me, like rock boho rock in a way, because like there are beautiful things and aspects to boho, but when I think of boho, I think of like gladiator sandals and tunics, which was in the moment when it was crazy, like in the 2010s. Yeah, okay, boho. But now I'm like, boho. But I love the way it's being redone. Like we're not doing that, which is great. Boho is kind of doing something else. And what brand is leading boho? Chloe, which makes sense because Chloe's brand identity has always been boho horse girl type of vibe. By the way, Chloe was like, when Karl Lagerfeld stepped in for Chloe, it was meant to be Chanel's little sister. Chanel's like kind of cooler, rebellious little sister. And I think that now that we're seeing Kamali come back and like revamp it from whatever Gabriella Hearst did, it's so amazing now and it's beautiful, and everything that Kamali's designing is absolutely stunning. So it's boho, but cooler. This boho I love because it's kind of like edgy boho. Anyway, so fringe, right? So we have this idea of like boho and kind of coming back. Well, when I was looking at the runways 5 seasons ago, I was like, we're seeing a lot of fringe and no one seems to be talking about all of the fringe. Well, I talked about it. Then we had Bottega have that collection of fringe. Then we had a couple other designer brands come out with collections that had fringe aspects to them. Jill Sander had so much fringe. So lots of fringe going on. Theater on the runway. I've made so many videos about this. It's been 3 years now. I stand strong in the fact that I knew in my body that theater was coming back. We're still not there yet. But it is coming back. D Squared went back to its true brand identity with this last show. Everything about it was theatrical. Everyone that walked was diverse. I mean, we saw different types of people walk. We saw different types of bodies walk. We saw different identities walk. And I think that that is a wonderful thing. I think that the casting was done really well, and no one ever really talks about casting on here, but it felt very true to D Squared because D Squared is known for having different types of people walk, not just models. They're also known for having these extravagant, like very theatrical openers and like kind of like scenes play throughout the show, which I have been saying for so long. Theater was coming back to the runway. Like, we don't mind the wire, but the mic died, so I have to have it plugged in. You guys, every time that I go to film, I don't actually like properly charge any of the things. So anyway, ignore the wire. I hate it, but it's what we're dealing with right now. D Squared is a good example of staying true to brand identity. D Squared has been bringing back a lot of pieces from past collections, particularly collections from like 15, 20 years ago. It's not bad. You know, people like it. And I think D Squared is a really good example of staying in touch with the demographic of consumers that they're targeting, and people love the theatricality. I love the theatricality. I think that, hello, I'm literally a theater girl. Like, I love theater on the runway. You can never go wrong being theatrical on the runway. Theater on the runway is the same energy as doing your makeup and doing your hair when you go out. It's the same energy. Don't ask me why, don't ask me how, but it is. My note says, theatricality runs deep within the brand's identity, but this was extra special. Theater on the runway, when you see it, know who said it. Me. I said it years ago, but just so everyone remembers. Evening jackets, something that we saw with Chloe, something we saw with Dior, which Dior got a lot of hate. I kind of loved it. There were a lot of really great pieces, and I don't know why it got so much hate. Call me a Dior girly. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I did like that they brought back J'adore Dior. I thought it was really cute, and I loved a lot of the Victorian style pieces. The collection was massive. There were so many looks. Oh my goodness. I was so shocked at how many looks there were, but I really loved a lot of the pieces. I loved a lot of the looks. I thought it was great. I don't know why I got so much negativity. Chloe and Dior and Schiaparelli. What do these brands have in common? What was the through line this season? Evening jackets, specifically done in a Victorian style, okay? I will show here. High collars, puffy sleeves, very Victorian. By the way, it's kind of very 80s. Something about it feels 80s, you know? I talked about 80s coming back in the decades, but this one feels really true. I hope that everyone can see that we're kind of moving away from minimalism, and a couple brands are too late. A day late and a dollar short, buddy. Too late. Brands that are releasing minimalism, oversized office wear have got to stop. We've done it already. Don't get me wrong. I love a tailored suit. I love a beautiful, beautiful tailored suit. I love a tailored jacket. I'm a huge fan of tailoring. It fascinates me what you can do with tailoring, specifically, you know, women's tailoring, but men's tailoring. After seeing so many deconstructed, avant-garde, different whatever office wear, office siren collections, just let it go. The power suit has had its moment. The resurgence of the power suit has had its moment. We are no longer in that era. We don't need a minimalist suit. We don't need an oversized suit. There are enough out there. And the best ones are usually not the ones that we are seeing on the runways, my opinion. Maybe they are. I take it back. We just don't need any more like reconstructive anything. Like, we don't need to see any more suits reconstructed. I'm so over it. We have seen it for years now. The thing about a suit, specifically an oversized suit or a deconstructed suit, it will never not be in. That is something you can wear all the time. It's gonna be timeless. A power suit is never not chic. But just because it's never not chic, it doesn't mean that every single brand and every single new designer needs to do their take on a suit. They're going off of this like outdated has-been idea of like office wear. There are brands that can do it and they do it well, but it's within brand identity, okay? If it's not within the brand identity, let it go. A season, a collection or two, yes. But like Tom Ford's always gonna do suits. Why? Because Tom Ford is suits. Duh, hello. Alexander McQueen is always gonna have some sort of snatched, beautifully tailored suit. Why? Because Alexander McQueen's brand identity, when Lee was the creative director and when Lee was starting the brand, he was known for his tailoring. Like, brand identity, we need to stay true to the brand identity. Not saying that you cannot be creative and do something different, but there's a difference between going outside of the box and being unique for a brand, going outside of brand identity, reviving a brand, turning the identity on its head, upside down, backwards. There's a difference between that and then just copying other brands, copying things that don't feel true within the brand, because you can do something new, something different for a brand, but still have essence of its identity be sprinkled throughout, and it feel true, feel real, unique, and authentic. A lot of people had a lot of things to say, by the way, on that video that I made where I was like, we don't need another reconstructed suit. Someone commented something that was like, no, like it'll never not be in. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it'll never not be in. I'm not saying you can't wear one, but we just don't need a million of them. This is a prime example of brands and designers creating collections for the consumer instead of creating collections for the art of fashion. Stepping off my soapbox on that one. Back to evening jackets. Evening jackets, I mentioned, we're going to see a lot of them. We're going to see statement items. And I said this in my last video. I said evening bag, evening jackets coming back as statement items in your wardrobe. The key to a statement item is not putting whatever on, adding whatever. Like, in my head, when I'm buying something that is out of my capsule wardrobe, out of the silhouettes and the textures and the color black, because I really only wear black, that I wear, it's intentional. And the reason why it works is because when I'm thinking of buying is something that is unique and a different color, maybe a different texture or pattern, embellished, maybe it's kind of funky and different, whatever it is, and it's different from what my capsule wardrobe is, I am not necessarily buying it because it's trending or it's like what's in right now. Sure, it might be in, but it's also what I view as something that's going to like have longevity to it. Like, a statement piece to me is an investment piece. Well, an investment piece has to have longevity to it. Well, what does that mean? That means that it's going to transcend decades. You're going to be able to pass it down to whoever. Like, you're going to be able to wear it and it still feel true to yourself, true to your style, and reflective of who you are as a person. Because I'd like to think that, like, me personally, and this is just for me, I pretty much wear the same thing in essence, right? I wear a lot of baggy pants, I wear a lot of low rise, I wear a lot of black, I wear a lot of black tops and white tops. And when it comes to the summer, I just have a very true sense of like my personal style, what looks good on me, what doesn't. But when it comes to purchasing new things or purchasing investment pieces or statement pieces, they're synonymous to me. So an investment piece is something that could over time appreciate, or something that you've been wanting to have in a collection. Like for me, I have a lot of Tom Ford Gucci. I love Tom Ford Gucci. I have a lot of the skirts and the pants. I'm a pants girl. I'm not really a dress girl. I wish I was more, but I love a good skirt. I like long skirt. I love a good pant. I love a good pant. When I'm incorporating things into my wardrobe that are investment pieces, they're often statement pieces. Because something about, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm not like verbalizing this right, but like when I'm going and buying a piece that is an investment piece, I want it to be different. I don't want to like spend a couple $100s on a black t-shirt, but maybe it's a black t-shirt that's completely different than the other ones I wear. Maybe it has ruching, maybe it has studs, maybe it's the silhouette is completely different, and it's something that like when you wear it, people are going to remember it, but it will never not be a moment when you wear it. And even though it's statement and you know, it's something that you wear and it's like, that's the outfit, like that is the look, you can still wear it a million times and it will never not be a look. That to me is like a statement piece, right? It doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be neon. It doesn't have to have sequins or anything. I mean, sometimes it is that. But when I'm thinking of statement pieces, I'm thinking of things that I can add to an outfit and add to my wardrobe that will transcend time, because a statement piece is an investment for me because it's an item outside of my usual. Not everyone thinks that way. That's just me. That's how I view it. So anywho, what does this have to do with evening jackets? Because I mentioned in my last video that evening jackets were going to be seen as this sort of flair, like a jacket and a bag were going to be used as kind of this unique item to elevate and transform an outfit. So with these kind of Victorian style evening jackets taking off, they run parallel with the military jacket, because a military jacket, if we're thinking military, we're thinking like military Victorian jackets. So then if we're thinking military Victorian jackets, hussar style jackets, well, what is in that era? Victorian jackets, Victorian evening jackets. Anywho, that is my take, I guess, on like fashion right now, what I've been seeing during fashion month. I mentioned that I was like not really thrilled. That's not to say that I'm not inspired, right? I think something that is constantly inspiring me is what's going on around me. And that sounds kind of dumb, but it's true. Like I work with a lot of different people that have very different styles, and it's interesting to see and be around people who are very true to themselves in their personal style, and then have to like go and style them. I'm referencing like styling, but like stuff that I maybe wouldn't think of wearing in a certain way, they wear or like they like, and now I'm kind of like, it's just interesting to be inspired constantly, you know, through your work. So I guess, I don't know, I guess that's it. I mean, Victorian style jackets I love. I already mentioned in my last video that we were going to see a lot of statement items and more accessories, and I don't mean like earrings, statement earrings or anything, like bags, shoes, jackets. Anywho, I think that's it for this video. Thank you for tuning in, and my thoughts condensed. Recession fashion. Why? How? Do we need to copy other brands? Brand identity. Let's stay true to that. Sometimes it works to go outside of that. Sometimes it doesn't. And if it's not working for a couple seasons, it might be time to go back to that. People like the feeling of familiarity, whether they believe it or not. People do. So when you have a brand identity that is very strong, sometimes it doesn't behoove the brand to go and mimic other brands' identities. Sometimes, more often than not, right? Okay, theater on the runway. I've been saying this for so long. Maybe I need to get merch. Someone design a shirt that says theater on the runway, and I will wear it in all of my things. Or like fashion film theater. Evening jackets, Victorian style evening jackets, and like what it means to invest in a statement item. Schiaparelli, I don't know if I mentioned Schiaparelli when I was talking about that, but let's go back. Schiaparelli has been just like, oh, Daniel Rosenberg, it's just, everything is so beautiful. Talk about craftsmanship, staying true to a brand's identity with a unique modern flair. That is it. they've honed in on staying true to brand identity, but still going outside of the box. Perfect example. Specifically, the couture collection. He was talking about how he went back into the archive and used different embellishments and recreated small structures for the detailing on the dresses and on the garments. Talk about brand identity and incorporating brand identity, sprinkles of it throughout new collections. Gorgeous. I think that's it for now. Like and subscribe, which I forgot to say in my last video, but like and subscribe and give me a follow. I love answering your guys' questions. I love interacting with you guys on my different platforms like Instagram and TikTok and here. Love what you guys said in the last video. And so for my next video that I'm literally about to film right now, I'm going to be going through the comments and answering and expanding on some of the comments that you left under the video. So definitely like and subscribe, give a follow on my other channels, and stay tuned. Okay, bye.